Hi again, everybody. I just wanted to start this off by thanking everybody who showed so much support to me. It really, really has meant a lot to me. And if you're watching this video first, I do suggest that you go and watch the other one because you might be a little confused. But without without more delay, I will just continue. We last left off with John in Allie's bar. The morning light swept across the hardwood floor into John's eyes, stirring him awake. With a struggle, he sat up, feeling like his back was made of loose gravel. His head started to flare up, and he gave a groan. His hand went to his face. "What's shaking?" Allie said from the bar. She had coffee brewing, and John could smell the aroma filling the room. Goddamn everything if I didn't know any better. Got a spare mug, or do I have to drink out of a glass? Allie dangled a mug from her fingers. "You look like hell. Got some aspirin if you need it." He did. The throb behind his ears grew into a steady ache. With some effort, he rose to his feet, using the table for support, and went to the bar. Allie poured him a cup from the pot. "How you take it?" "This is fine," he said, taking it in both hands. "Thanks, babe." He said it without thinking, and almost apologized. This was, after all, just business. But she only smiled at it. "Ask you something?" she said. John tipped the glass at her in a go-ahead kind of way. "What the hell is a big shot like you doing in a town like this?" The question almost made John spray coffee all over his lap. He gave a strong chuckle. "Big shot? Honey, I've only published a small handful of novels. I'm hardly a Bruce Willis." Still, you must have more than enough to vacation someplace more." She paused, looking at the ceiling. "Scenic?" "I'm not on vacation, truth be told. It's harder for me to write in the city. Maybe it's just the overall attitude, but everything I put down seems cynical. Something I've never really wanted to be." That still doesn't answer why here. He popped the aspirin and took a small swig from the steamy mug. "Honest?" he said over the rim. Allie leaned in with interest. "Tell me." He smiled. "I grew up here. Well, at least partly. Finished elementary here before they tore down the school." "Get the fuck out. You grew up here?" John cheered his cup to her. "Thought nothing came from around here but fishermen and coyotes, huh?" She went to the pot and poured herself a glass. John Holmes. Jesus. He had left Allie around 11, letting her do her usual ritual of opening the bar in peace, driving down the already sun-soaked highway. Out here, the only sights were a few jackrabbits that bolted across the highway and the dozens of saguaro cacti peppering the mountains. Maybe to a pair of foreign eyes, it would have held more majesty. But for someone like John, who'd seen it for the better part of his life, it only looked bare. Along the way there was a little shop called the Fisher's Hook. He popped in to pick up a few non-essentials to rot his insides. When he got to the counter, beer and soda in tow, he noticed a strange fellow reading a local paper in the doorway. He had on a pair of flaming orange shades and a navy blue hoodie. John tried to ignore the stupidity of a man wearing a jacket in this weather when the fellow looked up, smiled, and tipped 2 fingers off the brim of his glasses, which John hastily returned, drawing a humorous snort from the fellow before he drowned himself in the paper again. When he rolled up the gravel driveway, the sun was high in the sky, and the heat waves rolled off the tin awning. He figured it was only a few degrees hotter than the surface of Mercury. Inside wasn't much better. In his fit of rage, he hadn't thought to leave the swamp cooler running. It felt like an oven. John's tongue lolled from his mouth like a dog's. He didn't even bother putting the beverages in the fridge. Instead, tore his shirt off, cranked on the cooler, and stood in front of it. He needed to take a shower, but it could wait. Sweat gleamed off his body, making his tattoos shine with old life. Without thinking, he trailed his fingers along the patchwork of lines that made up a burning puzzle on his hip, up to the smooth ribbon that wrapped his stomach. It read Victoria in fine blue letters. Though his skin had begun to wrinkle, this still shone through like yesterday. He smiled, even though his heart ached. All he could think about was Victoria's feet dangling from a swing as Joanna hugged him. As his wife Joanna hugged him. He squinted away the memories and sulked into the bathroom, passing the pieces of last night's incident without much care. Even though the water was hot, it cooled him, mentally, if not physically, clearing his shaken mind. With a refreshed disposition, he went about cleaning up his shattered phone, not minding that it had cost him $70. It was just money, after all. When he finished, he put together a sandwich, grabbed a beer, and sat at his writing desk, flipping open his laptop as he did. The story had been titled Isolation, one of the few titles his editor had been pleased with, much to John's chagrin, and had told him, based on the first few chapters, that it was one of the darkest works. He didn't know if that was a good or a bad thing, and really couldn't care less. He wrote as he always had, from the heart. Soon the tapping began, and the sandwich lay forgotten at his side. It had been almost 4 hours, and only the grumble of his stomach stirred John back to the waking world. How long have I been writing? He thought, wiping the back of his wrist across his eyes. He looked over the screen with a smile and opened the top drawer of his desk where he kept his work phone. He had the intention of calling up Wesley and letting him know that they were back on track and the deadline would be met. But when he clicked on the phone, he felt the pull of terror at the back of his neck. The screen read 36 missed calls from his ex-wife, Joanna. Always be worse, he thought with horror. Always worse. And that's all for right now. I hope you enjoy. I will be busy editing the next chapter, and I hope that by tonight I will be able to put it up. You all have a good day now. Thank you very much.